We enter the month of April and the cold months of 2020. So grab a cup of coffee and let the iRacing action spice up your Sunday night. We welcome you to the Circuit de Spa Francorchamps. It's located in Belgium and it hosts the fourth round of Season 11 for the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. All coverage is on Apex Racing TV. We're streaming live on the iRacing Esports Network. It's a 6.9 kilometer circuit. Around 4.5 miles is Spa, a circuit that once was over, I think, about 14 kilometers about half a century ago. It rounds itself clockwise. There'll be 20 corners around the circuit to challenge the drivers today at one of the most famous circuits on the planet. And it will be 90 minutes of racing action yet again. The same as we had last week at Road America, the North American Spa Francorchamps. And we'll expect 2 pit stops from the drivers today. One of those pit stops will require 4 tires. It's over 100 meters of elevation change around a circuit. As I said, that was double the length it was today, believe it or not. This is one of the longest circuits on the Formula One calendar every year. And we hope we get to see the race in the real world later this year. From myself, Jonathan Simon, welcome to the coverage. Daniel Lee is alongside me. Scott Newton behind the scenes in production. Daniel, a historic circuit is Spa, a track that GTE machines would be all too familiar with.
Yeah, good evening, Jonathan, and to all the viewers tuning in. Great to have you back on board again. Mate, it's a great circuit, something that provides a huge amount of challenge, a lot of up and downs with the rise and fall of the track nature, similar to what we saw last week out at Road America. And with the GTE cars having such a good run there last week, we're in for another fantastic run this week.
Yep, very cold temperatures out there, of course, too. So these lap times, you can see at the weather trace in the middle of the screen, there are some gusty winds, but the cold temperatures are going to mean quick lap times around here. We're already seeing drivers, Daniel, in our warm-up session coming up to the race in the 2-minute 14 range. Can't wait to see what they produce in the race. But the biggest talking point over the past few weeks has been a switch to the version 7 tire model for this car in the GTE, and it's caused a lot of balance of power issues where the stewards behind the scenes and Ryan Colstad and the rest of the team at Aussie Mixed and Fixed have been hard at work to find the best balance in these tires for Season 11.
Yeah, definitely. A huge sweeping raft of changes across all the cars. So we've had tyre pressures increased early on, trying to mitigate some of the issues we saw last time out at Road America through the kink, where we had that big one early on. Other than that, there's been a lot of incremental changes through the ARB systems of these cars to not only help get the most out of those tyres, but also bring that field back together. And looking at the marks all up and down the field, it's really starting to work. The drivers are finding it interesting, still quite challenging. It's maybe dropped the overall pace just a fraction, but it's brought the whole field closer together now.
Yeah, definitely. It's time to look at the grid for today's event. Craig Edwards will start the race on the front row alongside Lee Vandenberg. Ross Rizzo will start from third ahead of Darren Lobb. Now, we'll cycle through the rest of the grid as we speak because it's a very short pace lap here and we've got over 40 drivers to get through. But Ross Rizzo last week, Daniel, was a driver who could have potentially won this race. And due to some technical issues on the final couple of laps in the final minute, unfortunately, he was classified. I'm not even sure if he was even in the top 10 at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, he did have those connection issues right at the end. Managed to still get the car home in 6th spot, which was on par for a podium, or at least a top 2 finish at the end of that. And really unfortunate for the way that panned out.
So here we go, pace lap taking place here from Spa. It's going to be a good one for sure today. Now, it's going to be a run down to turn 1, a very short one here all the way to La Source, but cold tires on this opening lap, Daniel, is going to be critical. You were speaking to Nathan Huppert's behind the scenes, and he told us that especially the run going through Eau Rouge for the first time and through Pouan on the opening lap, it's going to be quite deadly for some of these drivers.
Yeah, probably not to the same extent we saw at Road America last time out, but still going to be really tricky with these cars. Short pace laps, so no one's going to get the tyre temperatures up, and those are some big corners where you need a lot of commitment and you need those tyre pressures to help you get.
Here we go now, 90 minutes of action coming up here for the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. Round number 4 for Season 11 is already green as Craig Edwards floors it to La Source. He's got an awesome advantage here on the rest of the field. The field's already starting to form up here on this short 200-meter run down to La Source. A multitude of lines through here, and now through the exit. We'll see whether or not it's Edwards who still leads. He's under attack from Vandenberg.
Yeah, good run from everyone, clearing off nice and clean. Vandenberg closing in right away on Craig Edwards. Ross Rizzo in the hunt as well. And four Ferraris up the top. Dave Clements bringing up the fifth spot there in that forward, doing a really good job.
It's going to be close here as Vandenberg etches to the rear end of that Ferrari. There are 4 Ferraris in your top 4 positions. It's Dave Clements in 5th here at the beginning of the race, up 1 spot on Nathan Huppert's in 6th. Ross Rizzo remains in 3rd, though, in the train, so a very stagnant start between your field. But like we said, over 40 drivers out there. It's I'll tell you what, credit to the drivers already so far. After the abysmal roadblock we had at Road America last week, Daniel, a very clean getaway for Spa.
Yeah, it's a really good jump from everyone. No major issues at this point. Quite a lot of drivers going up and down through the field already, a little bit further down, but out towards the front, everyone getting away nice and sharply. Keeping right here, Jordan Cullis in the XRC racing car, doing a really good job. Kane Wright a little further back, dropped quite a few spots, though, down 14 from where he started.
Yeah, can I say something? Kane Ryder in the past, I think 10 seconds, as you begun your sentence, Daniel, he lost about 10 positions. So for Ryder, not sure what's gone wrong for him in the BMW and the Max Boost racing car, but certainly an abysmal first lap. Like you said, down 14 spots from his qualifying position. He's coming through to curb Paul Fredo to finally end this first lap. It doesn't look like he's got damage, though. I don't see any.
No, it doesn't look like to be anything on the car, just a very poor getaway. Another driver struggling to get away a little further down, Martin Crisp as well, also down 16 spots, currently sitting in 27th as well in the Wright racing car. So long way down for him and not a start that he would have liked it.
What a brilliant camera shot we had on the screaming run down to Blanchimont. And now we ride on board with the Max Boost Racing BMW. As they head through to the final chicane, they end the first lap here today at Spa. And look at the multitude of GTEs out there. Now, we talked about balance of power. We talked about pit stops. Mainly strategy today. We're expecting 2 stops. We've already had a couple of drivers in the lane. Adrian Vlock and Brayden Nash in the lane early on in this race to take their first of 2.
Yeah, I think that's a very bold move to come in this early. Potentially for these guys, only going to be fuel at this point. Get that out of the way and then look to take the tyres a little bit later on. Tyre management over the course of this 90 minutes is going to be absolutely key here tonight.
Unfortunately, they miss out on all the battles that have through the field, but could be a speedy strategy. So as we watch Julian Kleimbesink, who had a decent race for Supervac Esports last week, along with his teammate Dominic Malit, they were up there within your top 20 for most of the event as we climb down towards Rivage. And very, very stagnant start, which is good to see. I see Cullis versus Thomas for the 8th position. This is Trent Thomas. He's up 1 spot there. Looked like he pulled a move off at Rivage.
Yeah, getting up a couple of spots there, which is good to see for him. We remember he had a bit of an unfortunate run at the Sebring round a couple of weeks ago, and since then really been on a charge to get that car back up towards the sharp end. So sitting in a good top 10 position at the moment. He'll want to close up towards his teammate, though. Ross Rizzo currently up in 3rd as well. So the Trick Esports cars moving along quite nicely early on.
Yeah, now we had a quick something quick there from race control. Not sure what that message was, but hopefully we hear some word on it. I did catch Brayden Nash's name, but Craig Edwards, we lost the Fusion Sim Racing driver for a second. Now he's back on screen, and he leads this race by not a comfortable margin, because Lee Vandenberg in the other Ferraris keeping him honest as they scream towards the final chicane. So were you expecting this kind of start, Daniel? This is the last thing I expected.
Look, I think it was probably something we all thought would happen. Obviously, these guys have had only a short period of time to adapt to these new tyre changes, and they're getting on board with it quite quickly. No one wanted a repeat of what we saw last week out, where it really split the field wide open early on from that incident at the Kink. And if you didn't see it, you can always duck back and check that race out again on YouTube. But I think everyone's really been quite mannered here and getting through and getting on with it. Now the tyres are coming up to pace and where they need to be. We're going to start to see some really solid battles start to form up.
Yep, there's a lap car already in the way. Here's a replay, though, on screen. Let's have a look at what's happened here to Aiden Luthwaite. Oh, that's a lovely clean move. Oh, then he's ducked into the pit lane. So Aiden Luthwaite, car number 997.
Yeah, that was a sharp dive into the lane there as well. I thought he'd almost overrun the entry through the chicane there and brought it right back quite sharply to get that across the pit stop there.
Yeah, so good move anyway to make it up the inside. Here's Darren Lobb on screen. Now, we talked about Darren Lobb, who had a good result last week at Road America. Seems to be kicking off this event quite well, but he has lost a position to Dave Clements in the meantime.
Yeah, a little bit down at the moment. However, Lobb's come on really, really strong in this car. Just behind him, though, Joshua Thomas trying to get a move done on Happets, also for Fisher Motorsports. So a good little train of cars, but DPR Racing really coming on very, very strong in all forms of motorsport at the moment, be it in the GTEs or the V8s. We saw them have a really good run too on Friday night in the AOSC event, and backing it up again tonight in a different car and class.
Yeah, good stuff from them. So plenty of events out here being broadcasted across the world. AOSC, as Daniel just mentioned, we've had a multitude of events just due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's good to see people keeping themselves busy. Here we ride on board with Huppets.
Yeah, Hubbard's nearly trying to get that move done down the inside through the chain. Probably going to be one of the best points on the track to get a move done. Likewise, up into the source here. Didn't quite get that car close enough, but they're probably two of the key spots where the guys will definitely be able to get a move done.
Yeah, have a look at this as well. Huppets versus Thomas. Josh Thomas just threw it up the inside there into La Source. That reminded me of Raikkonen versus Hamilton here in 2008. And almost no room through Eau Rouge as they climb over the hill. And now onto the Kemmel Straight yet another time. Are we going to see 3 wide here? I'm excited for it.
Every opportunity that we will. We've already got 2 wide action with Thompson and Thomas. Oh, sorry, both the Thomas boys going at it. No relation here. And Josh getting that move nicely done through the inside.
Yeah, good stuff. And then now through Les Combes. Very interesting complex is Les Combes. Here's a replay we watch on screen. So this is Thomas that we ride on board with. And was it him who threw it up the inside? Now, I'm a bit confused with that. Did he just accidentally brake late, or was that a calculated dive bomb?
It's probably a little bit of the latter, I think, there. I think we saw the car having a little bit of a blink there for for Habit, sorry, and that would have really unsettled him as to where to place that car. And luckily for them, they both came back and got away with it quite clearly. But continuing on a little further down, Michael Kirkham, Tim Phoebe and Jeremy Clark all getting involved in this little scrap here as well.
Yep, this is Michael Kirkham. Now, there is word that Daniel Benefield spun, so he's lost at least about 10 positions. And now I think Jordan Cullis has had a moment as well down the back end of the order. So this is off camera that I'm watching, so excuse me if it's not on screen, but certainly issues for those guys as they fall down the order quite rapidly. But issues for them early on, Daniel.
Yeah, not going to be the best to start. So Benefield has got back underway, currently sitting down in that 24th position now. He's going to have to be careful though, because he will have Chris Pallett and then Scott Stevens right up on his tail very, very quickly. But continuing on this little 4-car train with Kirk and Phoebe and Clark all getting involved. No one really getting close enough to have a run through that chicane and setting up for another good lap here.
Yeah, good stuff. This is the Mach 1 Esports driver. The 3 Mach 1 Esports driver, we have Gamble, no, excuse me, we got Vandenberg, Clements, Gamble. Those are 3 in your top 11 spots. And we got Gardner, Kirkham, Timothy Phoeben. And I'm looking down the list here. I don't know if there's any other Mach 1 Esports drivers, but that's a good team to work with from week to week. That's like an all-star team if you're playing in the NBA.
Yeah, really dominant team in this championship. They normally have a lot of drivers up and down the field. They have a really good intake tonight too from the Fusion Sim Racing guys. So Craig Edwards up in there. Scotty Stevens a little further down, Happett, so we saw up on screen earlier also as well. So those guys are starting to take it to them. Don't forget, Right Sim Racing, there's a whole heap of teams in here where we've got multitude good drivers up and down through the field, and we see it week in, week out. Massive spread of teams all the way up and down this field in that top 10 as well.
So why aren't we seeing a multitude of overtakes now, Daniel? Am I getting impatient, or does dirty air have a factor here to play as Kirkham tries to slice his way past Pearson in the DPR Racing Porsche?
Probably has a marginal thing to do. I guess everyone's still trying to get the most on these new tyres, as we see Tim Phoeben run very, very wide there through No Name. But I think everyone's just trying to get the measure of where they're quicker, where they're not, utilise those draft advantages. And there's only going to probably be 2 or 3 real key spots we're going to see it. Definitely through La Source, down off the back of the Camel Straight, probably the prime passing spot around this circuit, and then that big run into 19 through the chicane there. But it's just getting those cars close enough through the mid corner, and with all the changes that we've seen, it's going to be very hard to do.
Oh, look at this into Stavolo up ahead here. BMW forcing his way past Michael Kirkham there. So good stuff from Timothy Phoeben. And have a look at this behind. He's going to carry a few with him. It's Jeremy Clark and the other BMW for Riot Sim Racing. And look at this mad scramble. There's a Ferrari at the back. That's Matt Morris just trying to find a piece of tarmac where he can slot his Ferrari in. Oh, and there's a spin there as well. Issues for the Porsche and a spin for the BMW. Kirkham involved. Incidents for Jeremy Clark. Not what you want to see with a nice scrap.
No, not at all. And Clark looks to have found that tyre barrier as well. So we'll ride on board with him here for the run up through Blanchimont just to see what happens on the inside. And looks like both drivers just the faintest of touches, and unfortunate there for Clark, going very, very wide.
Wow, a hefty shunt into the barrier, and I'm not sure if he has steering issues in that BMW, but we'll wait and see for the rest of this event. Here we ride on board with Warren Pickering. He's up ahead of Neil Pearson here. So Pearson now in that number 1 DPR racing car. He's trying to fight his way past here on the Camel Straight. This will be a simple move. Does that. Just pull out of the slipstream at the last minute. And he's got a lot of camber on the inside here to work with. So that's a good move there from Pearson.
Yeah, not a bad pass at all. Pickering would have been well awake to that and just slotted in behind, no point damaging the car this early on. Plenty more opportunities for him to come back up through the field. The guys behind, though, who we just saw getting involved in that little 4-car run through Blanchimont, closing in as well. And then right back here as well, Chris Pallett, Dominic Malik, Scotty Stevens getting involved in it. It's all happening.
Please no contact, guys. Love the look of the Ford. Need to see more drivers running that Ford. See a lot of Ferraris and BMWs for sure. You said you love the Porsche, Daniel, of course. That sounds very striking.
Yeah, look, I love that ear-piercing scream with the Porsche. It reminds me a lot of the Audi GT3 car, which I've had some good success in as well. That being said, I mean, each car certainly has its own characteristics, although I've always found the Ford probably the toughest one to do, especially for an engine that doesn't rev as high as it does.
Yeah, so as you say that, the Porsche of Scott Stevens makes his way past here on Dominic Millet. So a good move from him into Stavolo. Now coming towards curb Paul Frere. You know, you talked about no-name corner before, Daniel. I've heard it these days. I'm not sure if this is correct, because Spa always has some myths and legends. But it may potentially be called Jackie Ick's corner.
I do recall a name being mentioned at some point. I couldn't, for the life of me, remember what the name is. So apologies if it is incorrect. I'm probably going to stick with no name because it's the easiest way for me to remember it throughout the course of this one. But we'll keep an eye on that. Trent Thomas, though, this scrap for Lob, Thomas and Thomas still going on, and they have been inseparable for the first half dozen laps of this race already.
Yeah, looks like a move could be made here as Thomas, as Darren Lobb and the Ferrari is all over the rear end of Thomas. Lobb's fallen back from his starting position on your front 2 rows. And now he's alongside Thomas heading into Les Combes. As he searches for a move, trying to barge his way past is Josh Thomas behind in the BMW. Ever so brave is Thomas.
Yeah, it was a big lunge to try and get that car down there. Luckily, you're able to close it up in time, but having a throw down it anywhere.
Yeah, good stuff from them. They'll head through no-name corner in a second. And this is a replay of, this is Daniel Benefield on screen, so he's had a spin here. Let's see what's happened to him. He's just run a bit too hot there, so limited for visibility. Bit of damage to the rear end of his BMW, and he's going to have to trundle away home with some damage now.
Yeah, a little unfortunate there, but doesn't We hit the barrier quite square, so I don't imagine there's going to be any steering damage. Maybe we can jump on board quickly and just get a look at the way that wheel's pointing. But if he got it quite square, I think he'll be reasonably okay. The wing doesn't look too bad on it, and the pace at the moment still seems to be quite good.
Yeah, he seems okay. He's made up about 6-7 spots since he had the spin, so he's looking good so far. We ride on board with the Australian, and he's now trying to make a move past Chris Pellet in the Pulse Racing Team car. So Chris Pellet here doesn't get the best of exits, does he? You will receive an off-track if you run wide onto the AstroTurf. It's very slippery there too. He doesn't do that, does Benefield, but look at the sector times as well. Very quick in the last sector is Benefield, and this is the same sector he's in right now. This could be an overtake.
Yeah, definitely. He'll set this one up from a little way back, grabs the, just eases off the throttle just a touch, fires it down the inside.
Goodness me.
Get this move done and dusted easy.
What a move. Makes his way straight past Chris Pellet. And I'm not sure if Chris Pellet even expected that, but good awareness from him not to close the lineup. They begin yet another lap here. It's the 8th lap of the race so far. 15 minutes through this 90-minute event. Now, I saw a Porsche in the background. That's Richard Hunter entering the lane. He'll make his first pit stop of the day. But you talked about the BMW. There's one BMW off the racetrack there, Daniel, but we're expecting that BMW to run an even split today on strategy.
Yeah, I think looking at the way the tyres are going, obviously they're going to start to fall away a little bit mid-corner. Obviously, we touched on it earlier, they've upped the tyre pressure or the starting cold pressures just to help these guys through a little bit with the new tyre Model 7. So expect later on the tyre degradation going to come in. We know throughout this championship, obviously the Enduro's 2 pit stops tonight, 1 for fuel, 1 mandatory for all tyres as well. So split strategy around here probably going to be the key for that. And then later on, we'll potentially see a lot of guys just come in for that small splash and dash just to clear that second stop logger.
Yeah. So interesting to see when they'll make those 2 pit stops. So the BMW strategy Daniel Leach just spoke about then. See how the other cars fare as they now run through Rivage and then towards Jackie X corner or No Name corner, whatever floats your boat. You know, Jackie X would have won the 1970 World Championship, Daniel. Don't ask me how I did this. I made a video on it about a month ago. But he would have won the World Championship over Jochen Rindt had they scored every Formula One or every final race of the Formula One Championship with double points. Fun fact for you. Useless fact for you.
Oh, look, I don't know necessarily about a useless fact. It'll make me want to go and watch the video tomorrow while I'm should be working, quote unquote working. But definitely, I'll have to go and check that out because no, I didn't realise that at all. That being said, was not born around that time frame either, so he's still a bit wet behind the ears. But definitely going to have to catch up on that one.
Yeah, well, I am 96 years old, so I do remember that. I'm still having kids, just like Bernie Eccleston, as we watch Neil Pearson. No, that's not true. As Neil Pearson now heads through the final chicane. You know, I read that article the other day, and I thought it was April Fool's news. I realized it was April 2nd when they posted it about Bernie Eccleston. Congratulations to him for having a kid at 89.
I did see that. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the 4th child, I believe. So yeah, congratulations to him. Still going strong in the 80s, which is great to see.
Here we want Thomas versus this is Darren Lobb behind in the Ferrari yet again, falling like flies. And so why is Lobb's pace lacked here? This is odd, Daniel. Every time we watch Darren Lobb, he's not really consistent. It's either he's a lot quicker than everybody around him or he keeps being overtaken by the field. So I'm not sure why Lobb's struggling in the Ferrari. Do we think it has anything to do with tyres? Because the top 3 are all fezzes.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Like looking at the sector times from everyone up towards the top, he's still extremely quick in the final second, maybe just a fraction slower. But overall, there's no real reason that I could see why. So maybe just trying to save those tyres. Obviously, it's still a long way to go. We're only 19 minutes, or 19 and a half minutes through this one. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that and see. But surprising that he's struggling just a little bit at the moment. Danny Davison, though, has closed up quite a long way, currently up 5 spots, sitting in the 9th position. So that one will start to heat up. And then right, or not too far behind them, you've also got Scott Gamble and Adam Gardner, the 2 Mark 1 Esports cars, working their way through. So this could become a nice little four-car train if those issues for Loeb don't start to self-address themselves.
Yeah, definitely. It's Gardner now. We watch the Porsche attack. Scott Gamble here in the 10th position. Gamble as well has fallen down a couple of spots in this race. He's now fallen down another one to Adam Gardner as he makes his way past in the Porsche. So the Mach 1 Esports driver was on the podium last week. Don't forget, Daniel, Scott Gamble.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just going to pull back the results there. So last week, for those who hadn't seen it, we had Craig Edwards, Tim Phelan, and Scotty Gamble. So yeah, Fusion Sim Racing and Mach 1 Esports taking the honours through that one. Really good showing, and those guys very, very good on the long run. So look for them potentially to come back later on. Out front though, Craig Edwards really starting to open that gap up now over Lee Vandenberg and Ross Rizzo, about 2.5 seconds first to second, and then a further 2.5 seconds back to Ross Rizzo. So really good pace on board for Edwards right now.
Yeah, I like how you talk about consistency. So from a pro sim racer's perspective, Daniel, can you explain to people how you would work on consistency? Because it's something I'm still trying to figure out coming back into sim racing.
Not really. I'm not the most consistent driver out there. I actually really struggle in these situations if I was potentially leading a race. Doesn't happen very often at all. I actually prefer to be car number 2, chasing someone down. It's easy. I find it the mindset easier to be looking for something and knowing exactly what you're chasing. But for the likes of our top 3, very adapted, obviously leading races, very quick in whatever car they run. We saw Rizzo on Friday in the V8, now switching back to the GT. And yeah, really strong mindset for these drivers. They can switch it on, keep hitting the marks consistently. And I mean, talk of consistent marks, we use Craig Edwards as an example. His best, a 2:14.35, last lap a 2:14.8, so less than half a second difference, and we're working now lap 10, so he's really got those tyres dialed in. Likewise, Rizzo and Vandenberg only dropping half a second to 0.3 of a second from their best lap time so far. So these guys really on song at the moment.
Now, you talked about lap times. Those are some very quick times in a cold track temperature. Would love to see somebody in the 13s later in this race as we watch Ross Rizzo in the Trick Esports car. Begins yet another lap. He's been in that 3rd position for the entirety of the event. So there are the details on the right-hand side of the screen, and you can see how cold it is there, simulated virtually. Now, that track temp's increased from the initial 18 degrees we had in our warm-up practice session. That won't be hampering Ross Rizzo right now in 3rd. I'm a big fan of Ross Rizzo, Daniel. He's a very quick sim racer, and I sort of feel a little bad for him last week. You know, he didn't deserve what he got there at the end of the race, but I guess he'll be trying to make amends for that here today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was really unfortunate. First time back in the series for a long while, and to be in a position where he could have taken his maiden victory for the championship as we watch Loeb get a run here on Josh Thomas. Really cruel way for that to come about for him.
I stood back here from the mic watching that as we watched the Ferrari here of Loeb. Yet again, every time we watch him, there was contact between the two. That's going to force Thomas off the racetrack, and he'll rejoin. That will be a slowdown for sure then, so he's going to lose even more time here, but he's definitely lost that position behind as well to Danny Davison.
Yeah, that was a little bit clumsy there. Probably needed to just get out of the throttle just that touch earlier. Probably not really expecting Loeb to be as close as he was down the inside, but he'll get back underway. That slowdown's going to be bitterly disappointing for him, and potentially we're going to see those 2 Mark 1 cars behind Scotty Gamble's and Adam Gardner close right in.
Yeah, so here's the replay now. This is Hamish Cleland. So let's see what happened to the Kiwi driver. So we're just hearing word from behind the scenes here. Scott Newton, this was supposed to be a replay of a crash, but unfortunately, possibly due to some tech issues, it's not. It's Hamish Cleland elegantly driving that car through the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, looking really, really good at the moment. The line through a Rouge, pretty well spot on there as he fires it up over the hill. So getting on with it, which is good to see. A little further back, Trent Thomas starting to find himself in a little battle here with Dave Clements in the forward right behind. Clements still doing a very good job in that car. Started 6th, currently sitting 6th, but closing in at a pretty decent pace at the moment on Trent Thomas. We watch this run up through Rouge. Clements gets it dialed in, doesn't run it too wide across the top of the hill. Should get a nice bit of a draft here. Keeping an eye on pit stops, still going through. Looks like Matt Morris in the lane for him. Keep an eye on how long he's stationary as well, because this potentially could be a first stop going on for him there. But Clements not quite able to close that gap down to Trent Thomas just in front.
I've ruined you, Daniel. You keep saying I keep an eye on something. We've only got 2 eyes. You've turned into me. I'll say that during the race. I'm like, we'll keep an eye on this. We'll keep an eye on that. And then I realize after 10 minutes, like, I don't know how many eyes I got, but I've got 2. I don't know how I can keep track of all that. I get into that bad habit all the time.
Yeah, look, I certainly fall foul of that. I've had to definitely increase the monitor spans to be able to keep an eye on every bit of action going on. We're actually at 5 at the moment, trying to keep an eye on absolutely everything going on between where our drivers are on circuit at the moment, current laps, obviously our wonderful viewers in chat as well, just to keep up with them. And actually, I'd love to have a question to the viewers too. What is their favourite livery out there tonight from all the ones that we've seen so far? And we'll do a bit of a run through quite a lot over the course of the race, but we'd love to get their feedback on best livery out there tonight also.
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed in you as well for a second thing. I led you into asking how to improve consistency, and you didn't mention that you should just let Josh Rogers log into your account secretly. And unfortunately for the Aussies, it's not going to say Australia, New Zealand anymore. Your account's going to change to Germany. But then you'll realize, oh, Daniel Leeds winning this race by 30 seconds. He's really improved over the past week. Must be putting in a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah. that's one way to do it. Definitely, I think it might be frowned upon a little bit by the officials that be. But it's each to their own. Certainly not one for me, but each to their own.
Well, anyway, I've heard some bizarre stories in the past in iRacing, but we'll save those for another day, or if not, maybe for the latter part of this race anyway. We're approaching the half-an-hour mark, so it's a good time to look at your field so far. Edwards has led the entire way, ahead of Lee Vandenberg and ahead of Ross Rizzo. Those 3 Ferraris have looked good throughout the entirety of the event. We're watching the bottom end of your top 20 here on screen. From 4th place onwards, it's Nathan Huppertz, Trent Thomas, and Dave Clements. Now, the BMW of Nathan Huppertz, Daniel, you spoke to him before the race. Is this where he expected himself to be at this stage of the race?
Look, I think it was probably a little bit of an open bag. We didn't really have a chat about positions or things like that. It was more so just getting an understanding of, from race driver perspective, how they were finding that setup. And coming on really nicely. He's closed right in now on the back of Ross Rizzo, so the BMW working exceptionally well. Rizzo potentially could be having that same little issue that we saw for Darren Lobban, where he started to lose a little bit of the pace in that Ferrari as well. So it could be something to do with the tyres. We'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, new setups for everyone to learn tonight. We'll touch on that a couple of times. But it's interesting to see the strengths and weaknesses of both these cars. The Ferrari's been very, very quick in a straight line. So I don't think that's going to change with the BMW. It just seems a little bit better with that longer wheelbase through these mid-corners.
Yeah, most certainly. And then down the order as well, we talked about Clements in 6 in the Ford, and then Lobb is behind him. They're followed by Davison. That's Danny Davison, ahead of Josh Thomas, who's been ultra aggressive this race. Now, what have you thought about that from Josh Thomas? Good to see a bit of flavour, though, a bit of spiciness to our Sunday night as I brought us into the broadcast. That's exactly what we want to see. And I tell you what, we could be seeing it again here as he attacks Danny Davison.
Yeah, it's really good to see a little bit of fire in the belly for these guys. And Thomas obviously trying to work his way back up after that little issue that he had in the off-track earlier on. So he's got to try and get past Danny Davison now. Right behind him, though, closing in at a rapid rate of knots, Adam Gardner in the Mach 1 Esports Porsche there. A fantastic run down through the chicane, and he's now brought this up to a 4 and 5 car train with his teammate Adam Gardner getting involved also. Yeah,
lovely stuff from these guys. As Josh Thomas now officially makes his way past. He's still officially behind Danny Davison. Lobbs, as I said, finally good to see Lobb in a good rhythm now. He deserves it. He's had some good results in the past. He was falling down the order every time we seemed to look at him. Neil Pearson's entered the pit lane now as the number 1 driver for his first stop of the day. Now I see Ross Rizzo down to 4th. Are there issues here? No. It's a move by Nathan Huppertz into 3rd. He's screaming in that BMW.
Yeah, and got that move done nice and early, able to get back to the racing line as well. So really good pace currently in that Fusion Sim Racing car. He's going to start heading off after Lee Vandenberg. But Rizzo maybe just struggling a little bit at this point in time. Still 30 minutes in. We're a long way away from where we want to be from our first round of stops. But yeah, this could be potentially a little bit of an issue in that Ferrari for him.
Yeah, now, is this anything to do with the setup here, you think, with the Ferrari? Because the top two Ferraris look good on pace, but Rizzo certainly dropped off the past couple of laps.
Look, it's a little bit of a hard one to say. I mean, the Ferrari did get quite a big change in its overall setup. So down a little bit of rake in the car, which is obviously going to get away from some of the point. Some different changes up and down through the set as far as the roll bars are concerned, but they're not that different from what we see from everyone else. So potentially it's just struggling a little bit with understeer at this point, obviously not having as much rake in the back, but just hurting at that fraction more.
Now, I talked about fixed setups. This is a true story. When I was first getting into sim racing, we had you could send your setups, obviously, just as you do in iRacing to people. And there used to be the same guy show up to the league every week. And I knew he'd always ask for a setup as we watched Danny Davison here attack Darren Lobb. So what I did was I created 2 fake setups, knowing he's going to load the first one. It's going to spin out straight away as Danny Davison makes his way past Darren Lobb here. I'm going to go for a switchback, and this battle is going to continue across the main straight. But what I did was I let them load the setup, they'd crash, and then I'd send them, oh wait, no, this is the correct setup, and then they crash again, and that was 5 minutes wasted of their life. Here is Darren Lobb, though, trying to defend 7.
Yeah, really good run there. Loeb's going to have a lot of pressure start being applied to him now from Josh Thomas. We saw those two have that coming together about 4 laps ago, but Loeb wanting to get back past Davison. We'll see how he goes with the run up through Arouge. I think that Ferrari is going to definitely carry a lot more speed and gets it up there nicely. But Josh Thomas now closing in as well. So this will be 3 cars, potentially our first 3-1 wide down the Camel Straight here.
Lovely stuff as well. This looks like Schumacher and Hakkinen. Looks like Ricardo Zonta might be in the middle here. That's the BMW of Josh Thomas as well. Brave and bold, like we said. And he's driven ever so splendidly. The aggression is paying off.
Yeah, it's a great move from Thomas. Now up 2 spots. As a result of that move, those Mark 1 cars behind going to be eagerly biting at the chomp just to get their way through now as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. But straight away, Thomas starting to extend a little bit of a gap now over Danny Davison.
Yeah, good stuff from these guys. We'll have a look at this as well. Warren Pickering behind in the 18th position. He's having a good view here of Scott Stevens versus Julian Kleimbesink in the Supervac Esports BMW. And all over the rear end through Ravage. It's a cambered corner, so you tend to lose the rear end quite a bit. And same through Jackie Ipp's corner here through No Name. You can easily push wide there on the exit just due to the camber.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky to get in. Obviously, these guys have put a huge amount of lap times in to try and get on top of that. But yeah, it's a little bit weird the way you come into it. You certainly can take one of 5 different lines through there, and each line a little bit better, a little bit worse in different portions of that run through the corner.
Ross Rizzo back in 3rd. Keeps changing here. So Rizzo's found the pace again. Come the pit stop pace. How long are we expecting the Ferraris to last again? About 40 minutes, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say we'll look around the 40-minute mark. We may see some guys try and extend it longer, especially the 2 at the front. Their consistency hasn't really faltered much at all. But here's a replay of Ross Rizzo's run. Gets a nice draft down up over Arouge, down through the Camel Straight, and pretty easy run. Parked it down the inside. And as we watch them come up towards the braking zone, actually able to return serve to Happets, close it, swings it back across on the racing line and gets going.
That's a bit of a rubs it in his face there. I would do that as well. Try and get in ahead of the driver ahead. Of course, Rizzo trying to just widen the line through the corner. And makes his way back into the top 3 that pretty much cemented for the early stages of this race. So back to that story quickly as we watch Rizzo now back into 4th here. As Huppets makes his way back past. The reason I sent those fake setups is because I was trying to waste the guy's time in a 10-minute session, knowing that if I can get him to do 1 run, I'm going to have a better chance of qualifying ahead of him, and it worked. There you go. Random story for the day. Elite now We see 2x2 here on the back straight. This is Malik on Pickering. We saw Climbersink finally make his way past Scott Stevens in the Fusion Sim Racing Porsche. So 2 teammates there sandwiched by a couple of Supervac esports drivers. The team battle's on.
Yeah, really solid run. These guys are now fighting down over that 15th spot still. A couple of cars just starting to fall away in Chris Hallett and Dave Miller, but no doubt those guys will definitely be able to close back in as well. But here we are with Malik trying to get down the inside of Pickering, and I don't think he's going to have the legs on that BMW at this point. And Pickering able to hang around wide, but his teammate Scott Stevens very wide there through Puon, and potentially going to go down 1, if not 2 spots here.
Yeah, good stuff from these guys. Still not even halfway through the race, so the action's still packing on here in this 90-minute event. So if you're just joining us, we are expecting 2 pit stops from your field, and a majority of them have not entered for their first stop yet, so it's going to get quite interesting. Ironically, as I say that, Trent Thomas in the Trick Esports car will pit. He doesn't want to attack his teammate Ross Rizzo, so he's the first of our top 5 to make a pit stop today. And we'll keep track of his times because we'll see whether or not he takes tires. You can only, or you must take tires, 4 of them in at least one of your stops.
Yeah, definitely. And we're already at, he's in the box now, it's 5 seconds gone. So we'll keep an eye on where he's coming down. It's already sitting in 12th position at this moment. We did see also Josh Burden jumping in the lane. Warren Pickering also dived to the lane as well. So if you guys really starting to get their strategies started and sorted and see what comes of it. But I think this for Trent Thomas definitely going to be tyres at this point.
Yeah, nice stuff from these guys. Hamish Cleland now as well. Down the back end of the order, we watched him handsomely throw that car into the first sector. And now he's having a nice little scrap here. Now Scott Gamble's down to 37. Do we remember what happened to Scott Gamble?
Pit stop for Gamble early on, 30 seconds stationary in the lane, so he's working through. Well, that was, 30-second transit time, stationary only for 10, so very short stop there for fuel for him, and that was quite early on. So he did drop a fair way down, but will be able to work his way back up as things start to unfold. And we're already seeing from the guys that have stopped as our timing is updating quite quickly at the moment. They'll work their way back up through the field. And also for the viewers tuning in, if you do want to check out the timing and scoring, there is a link in the YouTube chat there where you can open up the SDK Gaming timing center. You can see the live timing same as we do. You also have a look at the track map to see where all these drivers are out on circuit at the moment.
I might have to double check that timing screen because it is showing a 1 minute 15 pit stop for Gamble. So I'm assuming if that is true and that is the case, then he's had to have taken 4 tires, which means his second stop will be instantly quicker.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's if it is, or who is that? One of the XRC cars going around.
Jordan Cullis.
The name. That's going to definitely drop him a long way down there. But yeah, for the guys that do come in early on, going to make it very, very tricky later in this half of the race. We're not even at halfway yet, so it's a long time to do on those top.
Yep, and you do fall. You fall down the order like a fly. Trent Thomas, after pitting from the top 5, is down in 27. This is Jordan Cullis. This will be a replay. No, excuse me. It's Ross Rizzo we're watching a replay of. And he's in the 4th position now. Let's see what's happened here. Now we're watching Mitchell Bales. So it's a good pass there on that's Aidan Luthwaite making his way past in the BMW. Now I'm seeing a multitude of names here. I think Dominic Millet's fallen into trouble. He may have had a spin here, Dominic Millet, as he once was around and about his teammate, and he's lost about 3 or 4 positions this lap.
Yeah, you're going to have to be careful there with how that's unfolding, so we'll keep an eye on him working his way back through. But yeah, going to be at least 1 or 2 laps before after making that issue that we'll see him get back underway. Luthwaite, though, flying at the moment for Synergy Sim Racing, up 14 spots from where he started early in the race, currently sitting in 20, about to put a pass on Millet as well. So we'll see him jump an extra spot here momentarily.
Yeah, no, nice little scrap here as well as Millet tries to make his way back up through the order. So issues for him. Let's put him down. This might be a good time to take his pit stop, and having a look as well as Billy Fletcher Past Mitchell Bales in the Ferrari. Bales now being passed around the outside of Ravage. That would be a nice move. Going to have the inside line into Jackie X. And he's got it. Good move there from the Porsche driver.
Yeah, really solid move from Fletcher. Only new to the championship and really coming on quite strong. It's a good run for him. Just quickly too, to touch on our stop for Trent Thomas as well. It was 30 seconds stationary for him as well. He actually rejoined down in 24th position. So we did see him running in that 5th position. So it gives an idea of where the guys are coming in as these pit stops unfold.
Yeah, nice to see a brilliant shot of Billy Fletcher there. Danny Davison as well into the pit lane for his first stop of the day. So Davison will fall down the order. He's in a scrap with Trent Thomas. We'll keep track of Trent Thomas, and we're expecting Davison to come back behind him if they make identical pit stops. And Thomas now heading towards Montchimon. Who's he under attack here? This is Blake Delaney up ahead of him.
Yeah, it will slowly close in on this fight just ahead of them. Mitchell Bales and Billy Fletcher, who we just saw having a really solid scrap as well, not that far ahead. So we should see this move for Thomas go through pretty quickly as Bales, Malit, Miller all jump through the lane as well, getting their stops out of the way. Adrian Vlock, we haven't touched on him at all, working his way up in that Ford Zilla car. You can see him just in the back of shot as well. So working his way up from where he started, up 22 spots already. Good run for them.
Yeah, now Vlock as well, certainly better than where he qualified. So hopefully he keeps making the same progress he has in that Ford Zilla 330 GTE car. Makes his way through Eau Rouge. Goodness me, what a brilliant camera shot. It looked like he slowed up through the apex, and as he came past the camera, screen pass, and then there's a multitude of BMWs. It looks like a bowling alley here on this Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, the guys ahead all scrapping after it. Thomas actually gets that move done on Delaney. Nash not quite able to get through, just ahead of these guys. So it's all starting to unfold as our quick guys work their way back up through the field. Lee Vandenberg, no, still going through. So yeah, everyone up towards the front looks still to be extending. We're about 4 minutes though from halfway at this point.
Yeah, exactly. This is Vandenberg on screen. About 6 seconds back on Craig Edwards. It's a good race for Edwards so far, by the way. He's had a good couple of rounds here to begin the season. Hopefully looking at the championship for himself. Vandenberg runs very deep there into the final chicane. The difficulty about the final chicane, Daniel, is again, it's another off-camber traction zone, and that means you always tend to lose the rear end through there. Yeah,
definitely. And it certainly opens itself up for a lot of really good passing opportunities, either via the crisscross on the entry or trying to get the run out on the second half. And you see a lot of drivers, especially when they come to qualifying around here, taking a very squared off corner exit to try and get as much momentum as possible to start off these laps.
So Michael Kirkham now down the back end of the order in 15th. Here's Kirkham through the final corner, driving that Porsche that Daniel Eat alongside me ever so loves. It's Scott Stevens and the other Porsche into the pit lane. He's joined by a multitude of drivers. Aidan Luthwaite, the Synergy Sim Racing BMW. Billy Fletcher as well. Braden Nash into the lane too. It is that pit stop phase. And it says Scott Stevens is his first place in the timing screens. That will reset soon once Edwards passes a couple of sectors. But for Scott Stevens, is he in the pits? Is this a scheduled stop, or is he pulled in for a DNF? Because sometimes that can happen if you have a DNF for the race, as we watch a battle on screen.
Yeah, I think Stevens was running really good earlier on. I think that for him was just a scheduled stop. We haven't heard any other official word come through, but we'll keep an eye on where he does rejoin. But at the moment, that car should be back underway.
Yeah, nice stuff here. So Scott Stevens, this will be a scheduled stop. This will be easy for him. So again, it's just a timing glitch on screen. Did start the race though in 40th, by the way, just letting you know, Daniel, up into 16th when he made his pit stop. Oh, but he's missed the box. Oh, goodness, Scott Stevens. And that's the difficulty when you qualify so far down the order. Either he's not used to it or he's had a brain lapse there and he's completely missed his box.
Yeah, a little unfortunate there. We haven't seen Stevens in this championship for a little while now. So bitterly disappointed with that one for him, but he will want to be getting going back underway. He's got Scott Gamble, I believe it is, just in front of him. So keep an eye on that as Lee Vandenberg now drops into the lane from second position. So first of our front runners to come in for their stop.
Yep, and he's joined by Josh Thomas, Jordan Pruden as well, the New Zealander. They're all going to make their stops here at the halfway mark of this race. This is halfway through our event here for round 4, season 11 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT series. This is the second of our first 2 endurance rounds to open up the season. We'll be back to our 45-minute format next week as Ross Rizzo now climbs up through the Kemmel Straight. He's been in a scrap, I should say, with Nathan Huppert's for at least the past 20 minutes. Is it time to make a pit stop, do you think, to shake things up for Ross Rizzo?
Yeah, potentially will. I think we'll see both these guys looking to come in over the course of the next handful of minutes just to get their tyre stops definitely completed and done out of the way, and that'll set them up for a nice solid run for the remainder of the race distance here. So keep an eye on that. But Rizzo just seems to still be falling off by a tenth or so each lap. Last time by 2:14.8 for Happett's, 2:14.9 for Rizzo. So struggling just a little bit. We're also seeing Edwards starting to lose a little bit of that overall pace that he had as well, just dipping back to the 14.9s also. So it's about the time where these tyres are starting to hurt.
You love the V7 on the GTE? Good upgrade?
I think it's been a good upgrade on all the cars that it's landed on. We saw it on the V8s. We've seen it now here on the GTE. I think it's really spiced things up quite a lot.
So let's have a listen to Rizzo now and enjoy the new version 7 tyre model. It's not really new anymore. It's been in existence for 6 months. So as we say that, Craig Edwards is into the pit lane. We'll keep track on that. We'll keep riding on board with Rizzo.
And quite a few more cars also coming. Clements, Gardner, Lobb and Phoeben as well.
Yeah, goodness me. So a pit party as well at this stage of the race. Clements, as Daniel Eat just mentioned, has joined the rest of the bunch into the pit lane. This is going to be a mad scramble coming out of the pits. This has turned into your battle for the lead. Here's Ross Rizzo on Nathan Huppert's.
Yeah, it's a really nice run up through a Rouge. Going to have the top end speed to get that car down in through the corner there. Easily done. As you can see, Huppert's just dropping in through the rear camera view there. But really solid move for Rizzo, who we thought might have been struggling. But I mean, both these drivers probably now struggling just that fraction. But that draft ever critical down the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, good stuff from them. So quick pit stops. Edwards will remain in first effectively here after the pit stop phase. Darren Lobb ahead of Clements. Adam Gardner behind as well in the Porsche. The Mach 1 Esports car is still in the lane, actually. Excuse me, I've got that wrong. So Lobb, Clements and Gardner are still in the lane. That's how long their stops are taking. Hamish Cleland also in the lane too as he makes his first stop of the day in the BMW. And a lot more pit stops to come up. At least your top 5 on the left-hand side of the screen have not made a pit stop. That's Rizzo, Huppert's, Kleimbesink, Chris Pellet, and Michael Kirkham. We're expecting them in the lane in at least the next 5 minutes.
On screen at the moment too, Sam Holden having a really good run in the Ford. He's got Lee Vandenberg right in front of him, so don't forget Lee Vandenberg took that stop just a couple of laps ago. Just in front of these guys, Adrian Vlock also getting along with it as well. So good run for Holden while the pit stops are unravelling. Still yet to come down the lane for his, I believe, actually has been down the lane once already tonight, very early on. So coming on quite nice for him. We'll see him with the tyre stop a little bit later though.
Adrian Vlock in the Ford Zilla cars had an immense race. He's just been passed by Edwards, of course, after the pit stop phase, but a brilliant race from him so far. And here he is behind our effective leader. Nathan Huppert's, though, pounces, and he'll pit first ahead of Ross Rizzo. So Rizzo, of course, had the first position, but Huppert's decides it's time to try and undercut the Trick Esports driver.
Yeah, about sort of the time we were getting as a bit of an indicator from Nathan around when they're potentially going to be down the lane. We'll keep an eye on the times as well, just to double check. This will be a tyre stop, already 10 seconds stationary, so probably going to be about right. Rizzo, though, will want to get in the lane sooner rather than later, potentially next time by if possible.
Yeah, definitely at that 50-minute mark. He's kept it very long here. Chris Pellett joins Nathan Huppert's in the pit lane, and that leaves your top three who are yet to make a pit stop, along with, let's not forget, Blake Delaney, too, down the order. And is that Jesse Butler, I see? I can confirm. Jesse Butler as well, yet to enter the lane this race so far. It's a long stint, the opening hour. And here's a replay for Craig Edwards. So let's have a look at this. We're hearing word that he may have spun here at the exit. Let's have a look. Oh, no, and he's clipped the wall as Edwards. And that's an unsafe exit, isn't it, as well? So, goodness me, Daniel. Edwards has clipped the inside wall, spun, and if you look at the timing screens, I thought it was shorter stops for Trent Thomas and Timothy Phoeben, but this could look like Craig Edwards has handed potentially the race to somebody else here. He's lost at least a few seconds. I haven't seen him come in to serve a penalty, so that may be a safe exit at the end of the day. I've never seen anything like that on iRacing.
No, it's a little bit of a weird one to see that unfold the way it did. Still a bit of three-wide action further down the field with Thomas, Miller, and
can I interrupt quickly as well? That's the second time this race we've seen Josh Thomas split two guys three wide up the mid.
Yeah, he's really getting on board with that, and I think he's been watching a few of the old Michael Schumacher, Mika Hakkinen Day videos just to see how it was done, learn from the best. But no, placing that car ever so succinctly to get those moves done, really solid job. Rizzo also in the lane as well now.
Nice stuff from Rizzo. Let's go, mate. Going to be a quick stop for you, and you could potentially even lead this race as well. So interesting events coming up here as we wait to see whether or not Craig Edwards will reclaim the overall race lead, which at the moment I don't think he has, you know. Let's wait and see for the second stops, but he's lost at least, I would have an estimate there, Daniel. He's lost at least, it's got to be at least 5 to 10 seconds from that moment. And he's got a bit of damage to go with it.
Yeah, and that's going to really hurt him because he was building a really nice gap out to about 6 seconds earlier on. We saw that over Lee Vandenberg, and just that's going to hurt him quite a bit. That being said, though, he's still ahead after those pit stop cycles have gone through. So for Edwards, I believe his stop was only a short one, 10 seconds stationary, but to still have the gap that he's got over Vandenberg, quite good at the moment.
Yeah, good stuff here. So where's Lee Vandenberg now? Lee Vandenberg's behind Craig Edwards. So what's the pit stop time it's listed for you, Daniel? Is that a long stop for Vandenberg? Because he should be leading this race after the spin for Edwards. Rizzo's fallen in behind Edwards, as we were just discussing, by half a second. Oh, goodness me, man. What's going on here? The race was, it was quite a stagnant race so far. It wasn't the most entertaining one in the first hour. It was very slow pace. And now this pit stop phase is shaking things up quite a bit right now. We're trying to figure out who's actually going to lead this race at the end of the phase.
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting. I'm seeing only a very short time for Vandenberg. We're about 4 seconds stationary, so potentially something definitely wrong on my end. We're seeing that, but we'll keep an eye for that. But further up through the field, though, two guys that haven't pitted yet, Klimbasink, Kirkham, long way to go yet.
Yeah, but we're going to figure out who's actually going to lead this race. It's baffling us as well. If you're wondering who's going to lead at home, we'll step aside for a moment and try and figure it out. You're watching Round 4, Season 11 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series.
while we were away in the ad break too, I'll just touch on it quickly. Josh Thomas, who we've seen have some fantastic 3-wide action down the Camel Straight, will need to come in for a drive-through penalty as issued by Race Control for incorrect car number tonight.
Oh, who was that again? Who did you mention?
Josh Thomas. So that was...
no. Goodness me. Well, he's running the 904, so what number is he supposed to run? Oh, Josh Burden, sorry. Excuse me, I got confused for a second. I was going to say, if it's Josh Thomas, I'm like, he's having such a good race so far. Not to say that Burden hasn't, but for Burden, yeah, he is running the 41. So in this series, Daniel, we must remind everybody that you are to run a 3-digit number, unless, of course, you're series champion. So unless Burden's got permission to run the 41. Now, I'm getting confused right now. I'm hearing word from two different things. I'm also hearing Josh Thomas should be running 766, and he's not.
Yeah, and that was the issue, the thing that I saw from Race Control come up as well. So we'll keep an eye as that unfolds, because if that is the case, Thomas definitely going to have to come back through for that incorrect number. Burden, as you said also, if they've not got that correct, will definitely be in the lane as well. Because really the only one that should be a single-digit number out there at this point in time would be our defending series champ, Neil Pearson, currently running the number 1 on his car, which he's absolutely entitled to do after the stellar season that he had last time out. And well, hats off to him. Probably not the race he wants to see at the moment, but working his way back up for DPR Racing.
Credit to Lewis Hamilton when he won the championship, opted to stay with his 44, and I like that. We actually haven't seen anyone run the number 1 in Formula 1 since... One in Formula 1, that was a pun. Since, I think, what was it, 2014? Since Vettel ran it in the Red Bull. Fun fact again for you. Useless fact again. Boy, why do I come up with all these facts every race? Sam Holden's in the pit lane, as I said.
Well, actually, it's not a useless fact. It's a great bit of knowledge, but actually the one running the 1 always reminded me of Wood 1 event, and I cannot get that out of my head. Absolutely the best moment of
let's
Juan's
get
career.
It right. Now that you brought it up, it was should Juan have, if Juan was to win one Formula 1 year, would Juan wanted that one to be in round 1? Done. I'm out of this broadcast. I'm walking out.
Oh, it is the best thing ever. Absolutely cracking.
Drop the mic, man. Drop the mic. Oh, man. I can't believe I remember that, too. I've got to get a better life as we watch Mitch Bales here. Mitch Bales is in the 317. Now, where's he? He's in the Fezzer, so he's going to be passed here by Aidan Luthwaite. And Neil Pearson behind. We're talking about series champion. And number 1's drivers. He's got one more car to make his way past. Josh Thomas with issues as well in your top 11.
Yeah, and that, I believe, Thomas will be that stop that we saw having to go through. So actually, here we are, disqualified by Race Control for failing to come through for that pit stop. So that's very disappointing for his fantastic run he was having. But that battle, we were just about to see Morrison Lithuate get underway. So quickly come back to that. Bale's included in there. Pearson's in there as well. So 4 really solid cars right behind, though. Mr. Specchio in the Ford coming up to join this. It'll be a good little 5-car train just about to heat up also.
Well, that's when Josh Thomas questioning why he was DQ'd right now. So he's going to get an explanation. But, man, I hope I haven't snitched out on Mr. Burden. Sorry, mate, if you're running the 41, so we won't mention that again for the rest of the broadcast. But Ryan Kolstad here having a deep conversation with Josh Thomas. It was bizarre there. I've never seen it. I can't remember the last time I think back to, who was it? Not to bring more Formula 1 facts in, but I remember somebody was ignoring the black flags as well in F1. Was it Michael Schumacher? I
do remember Silverstone with Schumacher in the Ferrari there. Actually came across the line, I think, might have been in 3 wheels at the end of that event where he was actually meant to come in for a stop, didn't do it, and then got it across the line, missing, I believe it was the left-hand side of that car. So, yeah, it certainly happens up and down throughout motor racing, right or wrong. Actually, generally wrong if that's the case, but yeah, happens in every level.
Amazing stuff. So, wow. Controversy as well, and Josh Thomas as well behind the scenes. He's owned up to his mistake, but I think he must have not heard the comms or something. He must have been deep in the race. So unfortunately for him, he was having a good race. Not a great way to end your event, as we see Mitch Bales now into the pit lane, and he's followed by Aaron Specchio. And this is Jordan Pruden. I think Danny Davison sailed past Pruden for the 6th position.
Yeah, we didn't get a look at that, but good to see the right guys out there having a very nice run up in 7th position. Tonight, new sponsor on board for this team as well, Apex Imagery. So for those out in the ANZ community who would like some good quality photographs, they're doing a fantastic job at the moment, so check them out. But yeah, for Jordan Pruden, and the Right Racing guys, having a really good run, very much under the radar at the moment, currently sitting in that 7th position and really starting to get up amongst the thick of it.
Wow, good race so far to win this one. We're into the final half an hour here at Spa. And as Pruden goes back to the future there and into oblivion, that's how fast he's driving right now to try and make amends for losing that spot to Davison. So far in this race, it looks like Craig Edwards has pretty much got this in the bag, but you never know from Ross Rizzo. Remember, Ross Rizzo did surprise us last week, don't forget, Daniel, with his early pit stop and the strategy. This week, he's not surprising us at all. It's the pace that counts.
Well, yeah, definitely. And, very accomplished driver. We've touched on that quite a few times, regardless of what the category is, whether it's the V8, the GTs, the GT3s, very, very good in those cars. And Trick SimSport, who've been around for a couple of seasons now, Trick Esports recently did the name change. They are a very formidable team to come up against. Very good on the strategy, very good drivers throughout the team. Ross Rizzo, Trent Thomas, who we saw earlier on, having a really solid run. And making a lot of headway in this race. You're going to have to be careful though. I think out of position at the moment, Adrian Block in that Ford Zilla car, just a little out of shot there, but Rizzo's starting to extend a nice gap now over Nathan Habits in 3rd position.
Yeah, nice stuff by Rizzo in this race. He's got to creep in though on Edwards. He's about a tenth slower this lap so far. Last lap round, they were only separated by half a tenth were the two. You can see the gaps at the bottom of the screen. And that's produced by our brilliant producer behind the scenes, Scott Newton, who can show us the gaps, Daniel. So Rizzo not quickest the past 3. He's got to find an extra tenth or 2 per lap, and within 25 minutes, that could be enough to take the win.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's not very big margins that we're talking about in this championship. These guys are so evenly close. And obviously behind the scenes, the series organisers and the setup gurus working ever tirelessly to get these cars as close as possible, given the balance of performance. And I think they've done a fantastic job. I mean, we're seeing 2 quality drivers in the form, well, actually, 3 quality drivers up here in the top 3 in Edwards, Rizzo and Happets, only separated by hundredths of a second in their lap times.
Where does Spa rank in your favourite circuits in the world, by the way? Number 1? And not counting Aussie tracks, because we know the Aussie tracks get biased from everybody from Australia.
They do. We've only got 3, and one I don't rate very well at all. But that's my take. It's nice to have it in the series. I don't rate it extremely well. I'd put Spa probably in that 5 or 6 tracks that we've got. Love the Nordschleife. Take a car around there and fly around. Absolutely love that. Spa is certainly up there, although I dislike myself driving there, especially after the 24-hour. Had an absolute shocker last year, and would love to make amends for that this year. But I rate it. It's a great circuit. It doesn't matter what you drive. It still gives you a huge challenge, and we're seeing that tonight again. And it's one of those things. It doesn't matter how many laps you do. You'll always find a different way to either mess up a great lap or increase just a fraction and get something extra out of it.
Yeah, a lot of precision that this circuit requires as we ride on board with Matt Morris. No stranger to a race win is Matt Morris here. We saw Chris Pellett enter the lane for the Pulse Racing team. And Morris here trying to find a way past. You can see that virtual rear view mirror there, just as you would see in the real world. Gives him a good sight into Aidan Luthwaite in the Synergy Sim Racing BMW on the attack. So so far in this race, there's about 20 minutes remaining, and the race is on between these guys.
Yeah, and some interesting lines there. Morris taking a fair bit of curb on the inside of the top of Eau Rouge there. Actually will help him a little bit with the draft. I don't think he just got the undercut, as we see him closing in with the speed, but looking very good just in front of these guys. And Scott Stevens a little bit slower through that mid corner. We've got Bill Fletcher, Tim Phoeben just in front, having a very solid battle also as they scrap for the 15th and 16th spot.
So Ross Rizzo is not keeping Edwards honest. He's lost yet again about half a tenth last lap. It was officially a tenth. This lap again another half a tenth. So for Rizzo, he is struggling. And Morris throwing the car into Pouon quite smoothly. Now what's happened here? Oh, Rizzo's in the pit lane. So Ross Rizzo's dived in for his final stop of the day in the Ferrari. This could change the race here because we know Edwards mucked up the exit to the lane on his stop, and this could be a chance for Rizzo to make a move on Edwards for the lead, albeit on strategy.
Yeah, definitely. We'll keep an eye as that unfolds. Very short stop for him, 3.1 seconds stationary, and he'll be back underway pretty quickly. So didn't drop a whole lot of space. We also had Darren Lobb come in the lane as well, and Rizzo after that, now completing his 2 stops, sitting in 5th position, just under 30 minutes to go on the clock, and in very, very good stead. His teammate Trent Thomas working his way back up through the field. He's got Josh Burden behind, who we haven't really spoke a lot of tonight, but Burden doing a really solid run in that Fusion Sim Racing car.
Yeah, we talked about his number, so let's hope the stewards don't catch on to that. There must have been some permission to run that for sure, as we watch Trent Thomas here trying to defend from the BMW driver. Love this circuit spot. Rizzo, as we said, comes out ahead of him. This is Adam Gardner as well in the Porsche. He is ahead here of Dave Clements in the Ford. Good to see these two scrapping it out, the Mach 1 Esports teammates.
Yeah, and very similar for both of these drivers. The lap times really looking solid for both of them. Actually, slightly in favour of Dave Clements, actually, who was a little bit quicker last time by. So the Ford working very, very nicely around this circuit. As you'd expect, a very low, sleek silhouette of that car, and I think we're seeing some fantastic running for that with the setup changes. It's really coming into favour for it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you talked about your favourite circuits. Did you give us... So, I'm trying to have a guess here about... Surely you don't hate Bathurst, all right? And that means that leaves Phillip Island and Oran Park. I'm going to have a guess here. You really hate the island that much? Or am I picking the wrong circuit here? Is it Oran Park? I'm confused now, Daniel. It's a mystery.
No. Look, it's Oran Park. I'm not a big fan of it. It's an old circuit. It's not too bad, but look, in all things seriousness, it is nice that iRacing were able to get a copy of it. Obviously now, for those familiar with that Sydney region, the circuit has been demolished in favour of more residential, right or wrong. I'm sure racing fans throughout Australia really not a fan of that. Myself included, I still like to see the circuit, just don't really enjoy driving it. But that's personal preference, each to their own, and no disrespect to any of the guys who think anything else of it. I'm sure there's plenty of guys out there that love that circuit, and good on them. I'm not going to take that away from anyone at all. Paul Wood getting into a good little scrap here with Jeremy Clark. So Oz E-Racers and Riot Sim Racing scrapping it out over 23rd position at the moment. Pretty good battle for both of these two. Wood's really come on strong since changing from that Ferrari though last season into the BMW as well.
Yeah, exactly. And Paul Wood, someone we haven't seen much this race, so he's climbed a few positions in the Aussie Racers BMW. Now trying to find a way past Jeremy Clark. Looks close from this camera shot. Want to see if he is... I'll tell you what, he could have thrown it up the inside there. He probably wants to make the move here on the Kemmel Straight as they dive down to Radion. Or is it Eau Rouge? Sorry, excuse me. Eau Rouge first and then Radion. We should just rename the entire complex Eau Rouge. And Wood here doesn't get the best of lines through there, but he'll be bailed out here by the draft for sure.
Yeah, definitely. The nose, that car just scrubbing a little bit. You saw him a little bit of understeer, but he should be able to complete this, especially around the outside here with that top of speed advantage.
Very cautious is Paul Wood, to be honest with you. That was an overtake waiting to happen. Craig Edwards, our leaders, into the pit lane for the final time this race. There is over 15 minutes remaining. He's joined by Huppert's, his teammate in the FSR car. That could mean that Josh Burden, the other Fusion Sim Racing car in ninth, could also enter the lane this lap. But this should be a quick stop for Edwards. This will determine who could potentially win this race. We'll keep track of these guys because Ross Rizzo's out there in seventh, ready to capitalize.
Yeah, and I'm just watching as everyone files through the lane. I think Edwards is going to get back in front, and he jumps out of the lane. Now, actually, sorry, that's Lee Vandenberg getting through. Rizzo still pushing through down on that front straight, so should be able to come through. Edwards out, Happert's out, and I think they will both stay. Actually, Rizzo gets back ahead of Nathan Happert's there.
Yeah, good stuff from Rizzo now. This is critical. He is, no, he's actually behind Huppert's. No, so on the timing screen, Huppert's, you can see him ahead of screen. It's confirmed. Nathan Huppert's in the BMW is ahead. Edwards comfortably in the lead right now after the pit stop phase, but only a matter of seconds separating these drivers from a potential race win. 15 seconds is Edwards behind leader Lee Vandenberg. 20 seconds is Ross Rizzo. The other three in between ready to scrap. So it's all about Rizzo now, who's ready to pounce towards the end of this race. It's all about Nathan Huppert's as well. Can he climb past his teammate Craig Edwards? But Daniel, they got two Mach 1 Esports cars in between of Gardner and Clements.
Yeah, both those cars do still need to come back down the lane to get their final stops for the night out of the way, which we're still expecting to happen very, very soon. But at the moment, yeah, Rizzo going to need to push on if he wants to get back up into that top podium position. But actually might be a good chance if we're able to, Mr. Newton, maybe we'll pull up those pit stop times as well, because that gives us a really good indicator of where everyone's at. And yeah, Clements, Gardner still yet to come down. Vandenberg, Davison likewise to stop. So all starting to unfold here. We're going to have a really solid picture as this unfolds, but I think we'll see Rizzo, Happert's and Edwards still looking at those top three positions.
Yeah, so very interesting here to end this race. Look at those quick pit stops for the second phase. So why have they done that, Daniel? So they've opted for, I think that's a good strategy, isn't it, to be honest with you? Take the tyres midway through the race. You run an even split on the tyres. Fuel's not a big issue. You just fill up for the end as well. And I don't like filling up the tank heavy. I like to run it down to empty and then fill it back up again.
Yeah, similarly, I much prefer that strategy as we see Dave Clements, Nathan Happert's having a very solid battle as they come out of that final corner there. The light fuel, reasonably good tyres at this place, going to help you abundantly around here as we see Happert's thinking about getting a move done, squares the corner off nicely, just loses touch on the exit. But yeah, interesting the way these strategies are unfolding, and that's kind of what we love to see with this championship. Even though it is a short race, 130 or 90 minutes in total, it really opens it up for the strategy and how these guys want to play it and see it unfold.
Dave Clements here under attack from Huppert's. Sails passes Huppert's. I think Clements backed out of that, it looked like it. And Huppert's now on the attack of his teammate, Craig Edwards. Last lap round, the lap time for Huppert's through the pit stop phase was a couple of seconds quicker. The gap now between the two is 3.9 seconds. That was the same gap between Ross Rizzo and Craig Edwards. Rizzo now is another second behind. This is going to shape up to be a thrilling end to such a long race.
Absolutely. I think we wouldn't have predicted the finishing positions at this point at the start of this one, an hour and 15 minutes ago, but it's really unfolded quite spectacularly for these guys. We've seen some different points of where Happert's and Rizzo have been a little bit quicker than each other and been able to make those passes. We saw about 20 minutes where they were almost inseparable early on in this race. So we're going to see that come back together once we see our final guys take their stops. Craig Edwards, though, even after that spin that he had earlier on, putting together a pretty faultless run, still got a good 4-second advantage at the moment over Nathan Happets, and getting on with business after that spin.
Yeah, so all about resilience after a spin like that. And Vandenberg begins yet another lap. Of course, we're expecting Lee Vandenberg and Danny Davison to enter the lane. As I say that, Danny Davison in the BMW will service the 975 car. And Vandenberg will continue away in the lead, just trying to rack up a bit of TV time right now. And what a thrilling camera shot that is. Through Eau Rouge and now through Radion. And on towards the long Kemmel Straight. He's got a lot of clear air up ahead of him and a clear track behind him to just focus up, nail his lap times. He will not win this race, I'll tell you what, but he will end up with a good result if he can nail these next few laps.
Yeah, definitely. He's extending the gap just marginally at the moment, out to 14.5 seconds presently, so doing a really, really solid job. And he'll need every bit of time that he can get to try and get that car serviced and back out in front. Tim Phoeben, though, coming under a lot of heat now from Matt Morris, just behind Aidan Lithwaite as well. So these three not that far away, again, scrapping just outside that top 10 right now.
Who's been your driver of the race so far? That's the question right now. As I watch Dave Clements on the timing screens, it looks like he's very close to Rizzo here. I might be wrong with that, but Rizzo and Clements, no, excuse me, that's just the timing screens playing up right now as we watch Phoeben here and Morris alongside each other into Les Combes. The battle continues for the 12th position. Matt Morris is ever so brave, and the Ferrari goes on the defensive into No Name. Aidan Lithwaite is going to try and make a move on the two here, and that just opens up the corner for all of them. They have to form up now, heading into Ravage and into No Name. The battle ends, though. It's Morris from Phoeben from Lithwaite.
Yeah, really decisive move there from Morris to swing the nose of that car up in front. Paul Wood's under all sorts of fire here, with Michael Kirkham right behind him, Sam Holden just in front, and we've also got Jeremy Clark involved in this scrap as well. So these guys fighting over 20th position at the moment, and with just over 10 minutes left on the clock, everything to play for as far as getting points are concerned.
Man, when we switched to that shot, and they were 2x2, couldn't believe it. Adam Gardner's in the pit lane for the final time this race in the Porsche. That will promote Huppets into third. Look at the gap, by the way, between Huppets and Rizzo. That started to extrude just a little bit right now. So Rizzo is falling behind here in this pit stop phase. He's under attack from Dave Clements, who's still yet to make his final stop. Doesn't have to worry about that. I think Rizzo will hope here Clements doesn't trip over him, doesn't get in the way, but Rizzo's got to get a move on if he wants to end up on the podium. Or do you think he's got it? Do you think Vandenberg will end up behind this bunch?
I think looking at the times, Vandenberg's probably going to come in behind these guys, although I'm not going to take anything away from anyone at this point because it's so hard to tell with the pace and consistency they're having. But Vandenberg's dropped already 0.2 of a second over this lap, which is going to hurt him. Rizzo, now that he's been released from being behind Clements, though, all ready to go on the hunt for Nathan Happets. And I think we'll see that gap start to increase now. The BMW is really going to start to hurt as it finishes out this run.
And have a look at that penalty at the bottom of the screen. Timothy Phoeben with a late race drive-through for causing a collision. This is him on screen. This is live pictures right now. So can you refresh me as to what incident that was? That was a couple of laps ago.
Yeah, not too sure on the incident. I don't know whether we might be able to get a replay of that, but we didn't see it, no. So it's great work from the race control there. Obviously, quite a few guys behind the scenes working on that, reviewing absolutely every camera angle to get an eye on what is going on. So to our race control at the moment, doing a fantastic job as always behind the scenes.
Nice stuff from Ryan Kolstad and the rest of the team, of course. Kester Mack, our pace car driver, wasn't used today. It will be a lonely night for him as he watches the action. At least he doesn't have to sit in the car like the real-life drivers, Daniel, for 90 minutes. Doesn't have to be Bernd Mailander and sit there. Matter of fact, I would give Bernd Mailander a bottle of champagne just to drink. Actually, no, you can't. You've got to be on zero alcohol. So just give Bernd Mailander nothing. Just let him sit there.
I could honestly think of a lot worse places to be on race day than just sitting in the pace car if you were needed to be used. I can tell you right now. But no, great that we haven't had to have the use of the safety car. We did see it a few times out last week. Obviously, we had a couple of big issues that safety car was called for, but we haven't had that tonight, which is absolutely fantastic. And we're seeing a fantastic race as a result of that. Jeremy Clark doing a very solid job. Down a little bit from where he started, however, but still inside the top 20 at the moment. It's got Sam Holden right behind and a little further back now that they've started to separate after their 2x2 action. Paul Wood and Michael Kirkham as well, just off at the back of shot there.
The battle still continue here to win this race. Timothy Phoeben is serving his drive-through penalty whilst these guys come across the main straight. This is some thrilling action. It looks like lap 1, doesn't it? But that was 1 hour and 23 minutes ago. So we're on lap 37. Now the Grand Prix distance, Daniel, in the real world for Formula 1 would be 44 laps, don't forget. So these guys are driving for quite some time here. This is almost as if it's a Grand Prix. But they'd be thanking themselves, at least on this Sunday night. It's not a 24-hour event that these GTE machines are contesting. Here is Sam Holden in the Big Bone Racing Ford.
Yeah, definitely. They're doing a phenomenal job out there. As we see a little bit further action, some fighting going on behind. That's Chris Pellet as well on Warren Pickering just behind. So a good run here from Clark, not able to hold on. Michael Kirkham, though, running very wide. Likewise, Chris Pellet as well. So some slowdowns for those guys a little further back.
Nice scrap here to end this race. So whilst the race is concluding, we are expecting Lee Vandenberg in your lead first position to make his final pit stop of the day sometime soon. So why has he left it so late here? Any reason?
No, I think ultimately trying to get in as little time as possible. I actually think he's maybe left this run a fraction too late. He's already dropped half a second over the past 3 laps and potentially going to hurt his final finishing result. So hopefully they'll get that car called in maybe in the next lap. He's only got 5 minutes still to come down and get that stop sorted. So we'll keep a weather eye on that and see where he pulls in. But yeah, it's certainly going to hurt him a little bit here. Further down, Dave Miller. Probably one to forget for him tonight, working on Aaron Specchio. We haven't mentioned Mr. Specchio much in this race, having a very quiet run down in 28th position in the Ford, and likewise for Miller in the Porsche.
Yeah, nice stuff. So whilst we talked about that, I was thinking Vandenberg, by the way, just to go back to that topic for a second, I was thinking maybe he just enjoys the clear air here and he thinks this is the quickest way to do it, to then pit on the final lap. So long as he's good on fuel. Very weird, though. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah. It's an interesting strategy for sure. I'm not sure how it's going to unfold, to be honest with you, but we'll need to see how it goes. I think it's going to be certainly something to keep in mind. Trent Thomas, similarly, working on the back of his teammate Ross Rizzo. So those guys for Trick Esports coming along very nicely, and going to be a very good result for both of those drivers tonight as well.
Here they are. This is Julian Kleimersink ahead of Josh Burden, who's had a good race. And Kleimersink definitely improved from last week. And where's Dominic Malit, his teammate? Haven't seen Malit since the pit stop phase. So Dominic Malit, I mean, there's so many drivers to look to. Dominic Malit's down in 31st, so unsure what's happened to Malit. This is a replay of particularly, I think this might be an overtake actually, as Kleimersink makes his way past Burden. And there's the Fusion Sim Racing number 41 driver being demoted to unlucky 13th. While we say that, Lee Vandenberg officially makes his final stop of the day.
Yeah, a good time to come in. So just on 4 minutes left on the clock. The car stationary only for about 4 seconds. So not too long for him there, and he'll be back underway. We'll drop down behind the Trick Esports cars. You can see actually almost going to come out in front of both of the Esports cars. We see Rizzo go around. Trent Thomas definitely going to want to have the run here through Eau Rouge. We'll keep an eye on that.
What a shot that was through a Rouge. I love this camera pack right now. The Apex Racing TV coverage, ever so thrilling as we approach the final stages of the race. This is Lee Vandenberg on Ross Rizzo for third. Still alongside each other into Les Combes. A lot of camber up the inside to aid Rizzo on the defensive, but it looks like Vandenberg's going to make it stick around the outside. There's a lot of marbles there. And as you can see, puts 4 wheels onto the curve. Now, whilst this is taking place, they have to defend from Trent Thomas, still alongside each other into Rivage.
Yeah, really good scrap for this final podium position for both of these guys.
Are you kidding me? 2 weeks in a row for Rizzo. There's a late race incident that's cost him a potential podium result. And I don't need to explain what I just saw there, but I'm not going to call anyone at fault for that one, of course.
Yeah, he'll be really disappointed with that. We'll leave that one in the hands of race control. So they'll be no doubt keeping a solid eye on that incident there. Trent Thomas, though, now up into 4th place. Could we see Thomas potentially get a run at the podium here as well on Vandenberg? And keep an eye too for race control to see whether anything does come out as a result of that.
Well, I mean, nothing's going to come out. It was no one's fault. So, I mean, I'm just sick of that. But anyway, it's a very unfortunate result for Rizzo. You know, 2 weeks in a row, he's been driving for an hour and a half to get basically nothing out of it. He'll at least come home in 6th, it looks like. But that, we'll see whether or not he can get the Ferrari home. And there we go at the bottom of the screen. I don't have to read that out to the audience, unfortunately, as Clements will make his final stop of the day. And he'll fall down the order and promote these guys, scrapping it out into 3rd and 4th now. So it's important right now. Vandenberg's on for a podium. Trent Thomas is hungry for that too. Now remember, Trent Thomas is a teammate of Ross Rizzo. He'll be hoping that they get that Trick Esports car into the top 3.
Yeah, definitely gets a nice run up through a Rouge. Should have a really good draft advantage coming down the Camel Straight. We're starting to see that into effect now. The BMW closes up. Vandenberg going very defensive early on, swings it back to racing line. But is this enough for Thomas now under brakes to get this move done?
Oh, thrilling fight here through Les Combes yet again here. Bit of argy-bargy between the two. I love the extracurricular activity between Thomas and Vandenberg, and it looks like Lee Vandenberg will maintain the 3rd position for the moment. But tell you what, bit of bad blood. Like I said last week, bit of bad blood never hurt anybody as they head through No Name. Looks like Thomas will have to set this move up somehow in the closing stages of this lap. And it looks like Craig Edwards here he'd be at least at Stavilo. Yeah, I'm correct here. He's approaching the S section. Few corners to go. Daniel, been a good race for him.
Yeah, it's been a very solid race for Craig Edwards. I think you touched on it earlier, who was the driver of the night. I think short of that little mistake, Edwards definitely by far managed to get on top of this new setup very, very nicely and led pretty well from start to finish minus the pit stops. So been a fantastic run for him. Fusion also have Nathan Happett's up there. Potential 1-2 finish for this, but we're going to have to keep a solid eye on that 3rd position scrap. Thomas just dropped off a fraction now from Vandenberg after that little bit of contact. Does he have something in the tank from these last couple of corners?
Scary to think, had Edwards not spun coming out of his first pit stop, he would have potentially won this race by even more time. He's got a couple more corners to go, so we're not going to call it yet. But coming out of the final corner, now he's slowing. Is he slowing too much? Oh, he's celebrating this victory. Ever so sweet for Craig Edwards. The Fusion Sim Racing driver is winner for round 4, season 11 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. It's a 1-2 finish for Fusion Sim Racing as Nathan Huppert's in the BMW will join his teammate on the podium. Lee Vandenberg wins out in the scrap for the final podium position. And we're still racing here with Danny Davison and Dave Clements. No, excuse me, Adam Gardner up ahead. So Gardner ahead of Davison at the end of the day. And action going on down the back of the pack. But what a race from Edwards. Brilliant 1-2 for FSR.
Yeah, fantastic job for both those. They come across the line, get that lovely 1-2 photo finish. Good to see for them. Paul Woods fighting still to finish this one off. He's got Kane Ryder out in front, who we saw have some very interesting issues early on in this race. Gets his car through, currently down in 20th position. So last little scrap here. I don't think Woods potentially he's going to get some contact at the end there as well. We'll see what happens from race control on that one. And Warren Pickering also coming across the line there too.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for Kane Ryder. He's about 100 meters away from the finish line. And we watch Tom Huggin here, who is all over the rear end of David Miller to end this race. Miller in the Porsche should maintain the 27th position, if I'm not mistaken. And is that still Kane Ryder on the racetrack? It is. Kane Ryder wasn't able to cross the finish line.
Yeah, bitterly disappointing. I wonder if that was potentially a fuel issue for Ryder that saw him lose traction there and have that car go around. So we'll keep an eye on that later on. Maybe there'll be some information come out post-race. Jesse Butler, night to forget for him. Although, that being said, up quite a few spots from where he started, but well down the order, coming home at least in 35th position at this point.
Jesse Butler, one little piggy came home, and he will come home in 35th. Good consistent race anyway for Butler, so the JP Simshed driver will be happy enough to climb an extra spot here as he makes his way past the unfortunate ending to Kane Ryder's event in the BMW. But now it's time to look at your final race results for round number 4. So there is your Fusion Sim Racing 1-2 for Edwards and Huppets, followed by Vandenberg on the podium. He brings that Mach 1 Esports car onto the podium. There's 6 of them out there racing today, and they'll be certainly celebrating for their teammate who had a brilliant result after starting from the front row, did Vandenberg. Trent Thomas and Ross Rizzo will be lamenting what could have been a potential podium for the two, but nevertheless, though, they still ended up in 4th and 5th, so good points to end the day ahead of Darren Lobb in the 999 DPI Racing Car. Gardner, Davison, Clements, and Morris. Some big names there. Those are veterans of the series ending up rounding out your top 10. Then we watch through the rest of the order there. Braden Nash came home in 14th at the end of the day. Timothy Phoeben, after his drive-through penalty, ended up 17th, as you can see. Still on the lead lap. We had a lot of drivers still left on this long lead lap at Spa. Even Neil Pearson, our champion, down in 22nd. And we'll cycle through the rest of the order. But for Neil Pearson, Daniel, what do you think's the difference for him getting back onto championship pace?
Not too sure. I think maybe the car just not quite gelling for him at this point in time. But certainly, it's a hard one to do. Obviously, the new tyre changes may not have helped everyone here. And it is going to be a big mind reset. But Neil Pearson, DPI Racing, definitely going to log the laps. They'll come back with a vengeance.
Yeah, most certainly. So there are the rest of your results. You can see all the way down the order, a few DNFs, issues for Daniel Benefield, who was up in your top 20 for a moment, and after a couple of spins this race and some moments, ended up outside your top 30. And then the DNFs down the rest of the order, Martin Crisp and his teammate Brett Wilson, are 2 XRC racing cars, falling to some issues. But for Matthew Barron, a DNF for him, but he'll be celebrating with the team nevertheless, although it'll be a little bittersweet for the 995 driver. So we will bring in Craig Edwards. Where's he gone? Here he is. Craig Edwards, we got you, mate.
Hello.
So here is your victor for round number 4 at Spa. And what an event, Craig. Congratulations from us in the commentary booth. And we have to say, it was pretty much a dominant race for you. And I don't mean to bring it up, but your exit out of your first pit stop was quite bizarre.
What exit out of my first pit stop? What are you talking about?
You've had a short-term memory of that already? That sounds like a winner.
Yeah, I got completely caught out on those cold tyres there coming out of the pits. It just kept going round and round. I was shocked. Luckily, really got away with it. The car wasn't damaged at all, so I just gathered it up and got going again.
And you see, the reason I bring that up is because we were talking about it during the race. Had you not had that spin, it cost you about 5 to 10 seconds and a bit of damage, you would have dominated this race by a comfortable margin. That's how strong your pace was today.
Yeah, this track really clicks with me. I don't know what it is about it. I just really get a good flow going once I put enough laps under my belt. And yeah, just was able to break the toe reasonably early and just skip away. Yeah, like you said, that little mistake definitely made it a little more interesting, but I still felt reasonably comfortable towards the end of the race.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Of course, we return to the 45-minute format for the next 3 weeks of the series. Watkins Glen the Circuit de Catalunya and Silverstone, 3 iconic circuits. And I think you'd be wishing that we head back to Mid-Ohio and Sonoma for rounds 8 and 9, back to the 90-minute format. You seem to be dominating those.
I love my Enduros, mate. Yep, absolutely.
Who gets it done for you, of course, in that 928 machine?
Oh yeah, big ups to Fusion Sim Racing. Big congratulations as well to Nathan tonight for pulling through to come second. That was really, really good. And now sponsors Eclipse Signage, Dripping Paint Graphics, and D-Carter Plastering. Huge thanks.
So there you go. That's your winner, Craig Edwards, from today's event. And Daniel, just as he mentioned, it was a 1-2 finish for the Fusion Sim Racing team, and you're alongside the man who finished in second, Nathan Huppert.
Yeah, definitely. Nathan, congratulations, mate. Second place tonight. Fantastic result for you. First off, how did you find everything out there tonight? Obviously, the switch to the new tyre model. Looked like a solid run and battle with yourself and Rizzo.
Yeah, that was a close fight. But, firstly, pumped with second place. I never really expect to beat Craig. He's super fast and super consistent. And my goal was just to be the first BMW home, which is good. And Ross and I had a great battle the whole race. It was with the new tyre model. All the cars were a little bit slower, but I think they were more evenly matched tonight on race pace at least. So for the first half of the stint, Ross the Ferrari just had a little bit more pace on the newer tyres, maybe a tenth a lap or so. But then I noticed, from lap sort of 10 to 20 on the tyres, that's when I started to be able to really min just a little bit. So I was confident at the end there that if I could come out in front of him, I thought I should be able to hold him off. Yeah, just managed to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we had a little quick chat just prior to race start, and it was really interesting getting your feedback on how things were unfolding out there as far as the cars were concerned. But I think from what we've seen tonight, really spiced the fight up all the way through. We know that obviously yourself and Rizzo fighting for that good 15-20 minutes. Then Trent Thomas got involved in it, and you almost had a little bit of 1-2 from the Trick Esport guys putting it on you.
Oh, it was a Trick Esport sandwich there for a while. Yeah, I was a bit worried because Trent was coming, and Ross and I were sort of just playing piggyback down the straight just to get ahead. So I'd let him through, he'd let me through, but while we were doing that, I just thought, no, I think I've just got a bit more pace. So I thought, that there'll be a time here where I'm just going to have to push and get a gap, and that's what I did. And Trent and Ross were then sort of behind and nearly battling each other, and I think that worked in my favour, so I could get some clear air. And but they were really fast. So it's unlucky for Ross at the end. I don't know what happened with him and Lee. Looks like they might have bumped each other, but great racing throughout the field.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, for Lee and Ross, a little bit of net code there. Unfortunate 2 weeks running for Rizzo, finding tyre barriers so close to the end. Not great. For you, though, next week, obviously off to Watkins Glen. Very different circuit to what we have here. How are you feeling about that?
That's a track I really like. So haven't done any laps around there on the new setups yet. So we'll hop onto that next couple of days and see how it feels. But love Watkins, great track. Should be close racing, I think. I think that's the sort of track where all 4 cars should be pretty evenly matched, I think. So I think we'll be in for another close battle. It's such a tough field. So it'll be good.
Definitely, mate. Well, again, congratulations on second place tonight. And the 1-2 for Fusion Sim Racing. Before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out and thanks to?
Yeah, just a big thanks to, I guess, the rest of the team. I think we had 9 drivers in tonight during the field, so awesome turnout from Fusion Sim Racing. Great to do the 1-2. Big thanks to Craig for giving me a couple of pointers on some data during the week, which helped out. And our sponsors, Eclipse Signage, Dripping Paint Graphics, and Daryl Carter Plastering. And thanks to you guys again for some great coverage.
No worries, mate. Look forward to catching up with you again next week at Watkins Glen.
Hopefully. Thanks, guys.
So, time to bring in Lee Vandenberg to the interview. Lee, we got you.
You do. How are we?
Oh, very well. Now, this is going to be the most ingenuitive question you'll ever receive in your life. So, you had an interesting race, started second, still on the podium. Now, I went through your first 20 laps in chase cam and rear chase cam, and you can see how everybody ahead, most notably, of course, Craig Edwards, just lap after lap gets further and further ahead. Then you watch behind you, everybody else gets further and further behind. I felt like this was a very lonely race for you, man.
It was, and then it broke into chaos with 2 laps to go.
Yeah, so talk about your strategy there, because you left that pit stop very late, and we were discussing in the commentary booth whether that was because you enjoyed the clear air for yourself.
Yeah, stick with what you know, I guess, for the race. But I sort of the tyres were going a little bit, so I thought, oh, seen a bit of a gap in the traffic, but I had to take on basically the full whack of fuel sort of thing. So I opted to go with that rather than sort of get caught up in a bit of traffic. And I think another car might have come out of the pits or pitted that lap as well. So it sort of backfired by a couple of seconds here sort of thing. But it would have been a handy couple of seconds to have at the end of the race.
Yeah, when we saw the stewards determine that it was net code contact between you and Rizzo, it was obviously, quite obvious. I'm sure you've had a look at it as well since. And then you had a bit of contact with Trent Thomas. But I tell you what, though, we love that. Bit of physical contact, good scrap between you two, and you would have found it a bit more sweeter considering you ended out on top.
Yeah, I didn't actually notice too much from my end, to be honest. I didn't sort of see anything pop up or anything about a contact. So obviously, unfortunate for Ross. We were sort of running around side by side for 3 or 4 corners, I think, there. So it's probably it was going to be interesting coming in the next corner anyway. I reckon he might have probably got the run on me out of there. So it's very unfortunate for him. And I guess I'm not too sure, Trent. I haven't really had a chance to have a look at anything there, but hopefully there's just a bit of hard racing.
And finally, who gets it done for you, of course. Great to see the Mach 1 Esports team back on the podium. You had, I think, about 6 drivers out there today. And it's I talked about it during the race. You guys are, when you look at the names for the Mach 1 Esports team, it's like an all-star team. Yeah,
no, everyone's pushes each other sort of thing. Sort of, I guess the aim, I suppose, to close up the likes of Huppy and Craig Edwards and that sort of thing. So everyone's pushing each other along quite nicely sort of thing. So as long as we keep improving and go in the right direction.
Yeah, there you go. So we'll leave you to it, Lee. Good result in the 3rd position. But Daniel, it's time for us to wrap up here in the commentary booth, and we head to Watkins Glen next week. It's going to be the boot layout. So we head not onto the NASCAR sort of layout they use in the Sprint Cup Series, or sorry, not the Sprint Cup Series, for the Xfinity. What is it called now? Jesus, Daniel, can you refresh my mind? Got to watch more NASCAR. Whatever the top series is called now. We head onto the old F1 style layout. Should be a good one for 45 minutes of action.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I mean, the Watkins Glen offers a lot of similarities to what we see here at Spa. Obviously, we've got that fantastic run up through the hill, and it's very high-speed circuit. It's going to suit very nicely with both these cars, and I'd certainly agree with what Nathan was saying. With that, they're going to be very packed together. It's a real slipstream fair out there, so the guys are really going to need to work on that. I think now, getting an extra week on the new setups, getting their heads around how the tyres operate and whatnot, certainly going to pay very good dividends. Obviously, the guys have got a solid 90 minutes of race condition data to look back over, and they'll pick some little flaws out that they can work with and change along the way, but it's going to be a fantastic night again.
Yeah, definitely. Now, it's just called the NASCAR Cup Series, so that's why I'm so confused, because they keep changing their name. I was thinking it's not the Monster Energy Series anymore, and then I was thinking, it's why are we discussing this? But it's definitely just called the Cup Series now officially. But there you go. That's my NASCAR knowledge for everybody out there. But that next race will be in a week's time for 45 minutes around Watkins Glen, as we discussed. It'll be on the 12th of April at 8:45 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time as we head into the winter time zone. And it hosts round 5 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. It'll be broadcasted on Apex Racing TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. Thanks, of course, to everyone who joined us for today's broadcast. Always great to see a multitude of viewers from week to week, and for myself, Jonathan Simon, Daniel Lead alongside me, and Scott Newton behind the scenes in production. We'll say so long from Spa. We also want to give a good thank you to our series sponsors, RMS, Abruzzi Racewear, and Simfinity. Our winners today, Craig Edwards, and we'll see you in a week's time at Watkins Glen.